Say you're working on a research-intensive project where you need a quick competitive snapshot on multiple companies, their funding rounds, their competition, and normally that'll take you hours reading funding news and guessing at competitors yourself. But here's that same research running right now, completely automated. This has been made possible with the help of Clay. So today, I'm going to talk about what Clay is, who actually uses it, and then I'll build one of these live so you can see it happen, and then get into pricing and what's actually different about it. Clay is a spreadsheet where each column can do something instead of just holding a value. One column can find an email, the next one finds a job title, another runs an AI agent to go answer something specific about the company. All of it cascades down the table on its own. You may be wondering the use cases of this particular tool. Mostly, it's used by sales teams because this is where it lives day to day. Sales and RevOps folks use it to build target lists that are actually right instead of a database export that has a high potential of being wrong. The trick is something called waterfall enrichment. Rather than trust one data source, Clay checks several, one after another, and keeps whichever one actually came back complete. There are multiple users using Clay right now for their own go-to-market work. Funnily enough, recruiters also run the same trick on candidates before reaching out. Consultants and analysts do it building out research on a list of companies for a pitch. And finally, just individuals, because plenty of this can be one person, a solo founder or a single salesperson doing their own prospecting instead of paying for an enterprise database subscription that they don't really need. Most of the usage of Clay may sit at sales, but what it's actually doing, that is taking a list, doing research, and filling in real info at each row, isn't sales specific at all. Anyone who'd normally do that by hand ends up running roughly the same workflow, whatever they call their job. So let's begin with a live demo. I put in the company names to save some time. And funnily enough, these are companies that all operate in the sales domain. So we have ourselves a meta moment going on here. Let's add a column. Here we click on enrichment and let's start with company domain for easy referencing. Here we go and we run. All right, I'm going to keep cutting to the finished version of each run here so I don't waste any of your time. Next, let's add the funding column. And you go to enrichment again. You have other options as well. You can find the person's work email, revenue, job openings. But for our purpose, let's go to the funding round. We have domain attached, and as you can see, here are the data providers configured by Clay itself. I didn't do anything on the back end here. Now this outcome is very interesting. We have some numbers here. We also have an explanation since through the data providers, the numbers are a little ambiguous. You can also expand on each column like this. You can fact check each data source and reach a conclusion on your own. What's interesting here is that the tool flagged on its own that I had made a spelling mistake, which I have. So I'm going to fix that and I will rerun this and see what it says. This is the entire flag statement. Now let's rerun it and see what it says. Perfect. This is what we have so far. Now I did have to run domain again for apollo.io specifically to ensure that the flow was right. I want to talk a little bit more about the beauty that is the waterfall system. You can see that there are multiple data providers here, and for a lot of them, there has been some error or missing information. But because it has synthesized so many together, it almost always returns back a correct number or a data point that you want. Another thing worth mentioning, this column in particular is really a straightforward lookup. It's actually finding this and not guessing. Let's switch it up and add a column, but this time, instead of adding an enrichment, we use the AI function. Now here, there's a world of options that we can utilize. But for this use case, let's stick to competition. Simpler. And like all of the other columns where we had to reference a specific previous column, here we need backslash and reference company name. Will be fine. Let's run it and see what we get. This functionality is different because it's not a fixed field like the previous columns. It's an actual question and it has to reason its way to an answer for each row. And now we're all done. Since this is a reasoning based column, we can click on it to view cell details and go through the reasoning for each column. There's also a confidence metric and separate response and reasoning functionalities. If you notice, a lot of the competitors are the other cells. There's a lot of mixing going on, and that's because all these companies are in the same domain, which makes total sense. I'll just quickly go through all the responses. You can see Zoom Info being Gong's biggest competitor, as I mentioned. Confidence will vary based on the quality of your data providers and how much data there really is about the company on the net. And there we have a demo. The engine underneath all of this is an AI agent called Claygent that supposedly completed over 1 billion of these lookups across everywhere using Clay. It's pulling from somewhere between 75 and 150 plus outside data providers, depending who you ask. And that waterfall trick, try a few, keep the best, is really what makes the fill rate better than any one source on its own. Automating your work so much quicker than you would have done it otherwise. Now you may notice these credit approximations per functionality per enrichment. Credits burn differently depending on what you're asking. A simple lookup's cheap. An open-ended AI question, on the other hand, costs more. And if half your columns are that kind, you'll blow through your allowance faster than you'd expect. It also rewards a little upfront thinking. A well-set table builds one giant wave prompt every time. There's so much that you can identify through simple lookups. And as for what actually separates it, most competitors are basically a database that you query. Play is more like a programmable workspace built around a spreadsheet. So it can chain 10 lookups and AI questions together into one workflow, which a static database just can't do. It's a lot more flexible, but there's definitely a real learning curve to using that flexibility well and comprehensively. Let's get to the pricing part. Clay's pricing model has two different formats, monthly and annual. Both of them have four tiers: free, launch, growth, and enterprise. Free includes 500 actions per month and 100 data credits for the same. There's unlimited seats and tables. You can run up to 200 rows per table and bring your own API key. That's plenty for the kind of demo I just did. Launch, on the other hand, is $185 per month, which is an entry paid tier for a small team or a solo person prospecting regularly. When you move up, growth tier is where native CRM integrations show up. Salesforce, HubSpot, plus more credits, of course. Finally, the enterprise tier is custom pricing and reportedly anywhere from around $12,000 to well over 100K a year, depending on scale, with SSO and direct warehouse syncing. They split credits into two pools now: data credits for actual lookups and actions for general workflow steps. Hence the word actions in each of the tiers. A bit more to track than one number, but it means formatting and filtering don't eat into a paid data budget the way an actual lookup does. They really has a lot more benefits than what I've done justice to. It has different products, specified use cases, not just GTM, provided solutions, and resources where you can find Clay experts, discover blogs, and engage in the Clay community. If you If you need real research or enrichment across a list, companies, people, really anything, and you're willing to spend a little bit more time setting the table up right, this is one of the strongest tools you can use out there. And it extends so much beyond AI for spreadsheets. It's the whole waterfall system across a pile of data sources. It's an agent that can go answer open questions per row, which gets you a list, sorry, that's actually accurate instead of just fast. Sales prospecting, recruiting research, building out a company list for a project, the list goes on. But really, underneath, it's the same concept, which is really Clay's USP.